All right, so we're still looking at the aggregate supply, aggregate demand curve. Last time we discussed aggregate demand. We said aggregate demand is basically the total of expenditure on goods and services within an economy, right? Total expenditure of goods and services within an economy. And we saw, just like we learned in microeconomics, aggregate demand is downward sloping, like the demand curve. Okay, there is an inverse relationship between the price level and the aggregate demand. Okay, so here on your y-axis is price level. On your x-axis, this is real GDP output. So do you remember what real GDP output is? Okay, the total value of the goods and services produced within a nation's borders. That's GDP. Total market value of the goods and services produced within a nation's borders. Now, real GDP takes into account inflation. Okay, it adjusts the GDP for inflation. Okay, because since GDP, it's price times quantity. Okay, so if price level goes up and quantity stays the same, your GDP is going to look high. But the only reason why the GDP is looking high is because price level has increased. Okay, so this can be misleading. So you need to adjust for inflation so that you can monitor and say, are we really producing more? Because GDP is all about producing. Okay, the nation producing. Okay, if the nation is producing more each year, that is good for the nation. Right. So now, price, as I said, price levels they usually go up as years go by. Okay, so with price level when it goes up, it can give us a big GDP, but in actuality, our output hasn't increased. That's why we bring in the real GDP. It just takes into account inflation. Okay, you use a base year and you use the prices for that base year, so that you make the prices constant, so that you can track and see if your output has increased. Yes, is that okay, sir? Yes. So at high price levels, there is low expenditure within a nation. Okay. People are spending less or buying less because things are expensive. Okay. And if companies within the economy see that people are buying less, they won't they won't there won't be any incentive to produce more because your goods will just sit in the stores and get damaged. Other goods, yeah, they might not get damaged, but basically the assumption is that people are spending less as a business to produce more. It won't make sense because you're producing more, but people are buying less. So at high price levels, less expenditure and eventually less output. At low price levels, there's a lot of expenditure, people are buying. And as a business, if you see people are buying your goods, you'll be enticed to produce more. Okay. Yes. And we say what shifts this curve are four factors. Okay. Basically, the four parties that spend within an economy: consumers, as the citizens of the nation; businesses, through investment expenditure. When a business is expanding, it gets new projects. Okay, might need to hire new people. And when it hires people, it means more money in people's pockets. Government spending. Okay, if government spends more, then aggregate demand increases because as government spends, people are getting hired. If government is building new roads, new bridges, and other infrastructure, they'll need to hire contractors. those contractors are going to hire people. Those people will get paid. And when they get paid, money in their pockets, they're going to spend that money. So there will be a lot of expenditure within the economy. And finally, we said foreigners through exports. Okay. If foreigners are buying our goods, aggregate demand for our goods increases. This X represents exports, this M represents imports. Okay. Yes. And we said the reasons why this curve is downward sloping, the wealth effect, when goods become expensive and your income still stays the same, you're going to feel poor and you buy less of those goods. If the price level of goods goes down, they look cheap, they become cheaper, and you feel more rich or more wealthier so that you can buy more goods. That is the wealth effect. The second one is the interest rate effect. Okay, when price levels go up, okay, even interest rates also go up. Okay, because also as price levels goes up, businesses might want to borrow more. Government might also want to borrow more. People might want also to borrow more. So you find since people are demanding more money, since price levels have gone up, so people will demand more money so that they can cover those prices. So now the banks don't have all that money to give out. So they're going to have to raise interest rates because they can't give it out to anybody. All right. Even just you as a person, or if goods become expensive and someone comes to ask for you for a loan from you, obviously you will charge a higher interest rate so that you can get a good amount of money so that at least you can take care of what needs to be taken care of. And then finally, with the foreign exchange effect. Okay, if you're buying goods from South Africa and the rand depreciates in relation to the kwacha, it means South African goods will be cheaper and you buy more. But if you're buying goods from South Africa and the rand appreciates relative to the kwacha, means South African goods will be expensive and you're going to buy less. So these are the three reasons why aggregate demand is downward sloping. Now today we're going to look at aggregate supply in the short run and in the long run. Okay, so basic aggregate supply is the total quantity that businesses and people are willing to produce and sell within the economy. Okay, it's just the total quantity of goods that will be produced and sold by and ready to be sold by businesses at a given price level. Right. So we've got two types of aggregate supply. We've got the short run aggregate supply, and we've got the long run aggregate supply. And due to this difference in the two, you're going to see that there will be a difference in the curve, in the graphs. So we're going to start with the short run aggregate supply. It's like the one which we remember from microeconomics, similar, like this, upward sloping. Now in macroeconomics, the short run is when wages, okay, and other prices, not all prices, but wages and certain prices they remain fixed. Meaning, if today, as we can see right now, prices are going up for goods, just right now, as we are speaking today, price level has gone up for goods. But your income, your salary hasn't increased yet. Okay. So that's what we're talking about, the sticky wages. Your salary hasn't gone up. Prices of goods have gone up, but your salary has still stayed the same. So now for a business, because aggregate supply, we're looking at the supplier side. Okay, this is what they want to produce and sell in the economy at a given price level. So for a business, when expenses like wages stay the same, okay, they can increase the output and they can produce more. Let me just show a small illustration here. Okay, so here, as we can see here, we've got the prices here, we have the quantities, but the wages and other costs like the rent and wait, yeah, other costs like rent, they all stay the same, and wages, okay, they still stay the same. So as a business, for example, let's start at this point here where the price is at 1.25 here, 1.25 kwacha here, right? When the price level goes up and the businesses can also sell the goods for a higher price, okay, they can increase the output. As you see, from 1.25, the price has gone up to 2.5 kwacha. And this business produces more, okay? And we're going to see what happens to the revenue and the profit margin, okay? So for this business, let's say when we saw this point when price was at 1.25, they're producing 3 million units. Yes. Mhm. What I'm showing. Eesh, you should have. Eesh, I wasn't sharing my screen. Ah, yay! I was sharing my screen. I wasn't sharing the screen. Ish. Okay, but at least it's being recorded, so you will see in the recording. Yes. Yeah. Whenever I start a lesson and I haven't shared my screen, just let me know, okay? Just let me say I haven't shared your screen. Okay. So, yes, as I was saying, in the short run, wages and certain costs stay fixed. They don't change. Just because price levels have gone up, the wages and wages, they're not your wages are not just going to increase that day. Okay, because you've got contracts. All right. So, and you have to wait for your contract to expire before you can negotiate. Okay. So, for your business, since the wages and certain other costs stay the same, that's the assumption. Since wages and other costs stay the same, the business, what it can do, it can increase its output. Okay. Apart from increasing the price, they also increase output. Okay. So, I want to see um, how this will benefit the company, because when the wages stay fixed and they increase their output, okay, their profits are going to grow. Okay, profits are going to grow. So in this table here, we're starting at this point here. When price is 1.25 kwacha, 1.25 times 3 million, what do we get? Let's get our calculators. 1.25 times 3 million. Oh, yeah, times 3 million. Mhm. Okay. Then we see, okay, what is the profit they're going to make? So profit, so here we're assuming wages and various costs. As I said, with these illustrations, there are a lot of assumptions made. Okay. In real life, in the short run, yeah, other expenses are going to increase. Okay. But wages usually it won't increase, but other expenses might increase. Okay, but here he was assuming the wages and other expenses stay fixed, but wages especially is emphasized mostly on wages. Wages stay fixed. Okay, so profit we're just going to say 3,750,000 minus 500,000. That should be 3,250,000, right? 3,250,000. Okay, so let's see also our profit margin. Okay, profit margin is just saying out of this revenue here, this 3,750,000, what percentage is your profit basically? So our profit margin, do not worry, they'll never ask you to calculate this, colleagues, okay? They won't ask you to calculate this in an exam. Here I'm just trying to illustrate what happens when wages are fixed and we also assume other costs stay fixed. Okay, why the short run aggregate supply curve is upward sloping. So the profit margin, it's just your profit, 3,250,000 divided by your revenue. So 3,250,000 divided by 3,750,000. What do we get? Then you multiply by 100 because it's a percentage that we're looking for. Yes, what percentage are we getting? 3,250,000 divided by 3,000,000. 750. Okay, so that's like the profit margin is 76%. Okay, now price level has gone up. And the business says, okay, so price levels have gone up. Let's increase the price of the good that we're selling and our wages stay the same. And let's also increase our output. Okay. Mm-hmm. 86.6, huh? Okay, okay. 86.6. Okay. Then now price level goes up. This business decides to increase the price of its good and also increase the output, but wages stay fixed. So let's get our new revenue 2.5 times 6 million. 15 million. Have you seen how the revenue has jumped? Our profit, let's say 15 million times 500,000, that is 40,500,000. All right, 40,500,000. So our profit margin, 40,500,000 divided by 15 million. Are we getting 96.6? 96, yes, 96.6%. Okay. So as you can see, there's an incentive for businesses to increase output because their profit margins are going to increase. Okay, the profit margins are going to increase, and they are, especially wages are still going to stay fixed. So the business is going to benefit by producing more. Then also when price levels go down, the opposite happens now. Okay, the price level goes down, it means it won't be very profitable for the business to be producing as much as they were earlier on. They might need to reduce prices. Okay, and since wages are still fixed, and if the price which they're selling at is very low to cover those wages, they might even lay off workers. Okay, they might lay off workers because as the price has gone down, the wages are still fixed. They cannot take care of those expenses, or if they keep the workers, those expenses will take a big chunk of their profits. So you find companies might lay off workers. Okay, they might lay workers off. Okay, so as they lay off workers, also they're going to produce less. Okay, because less workers in the factory, it means machinery is sitting idle. And if machinery is sitting idle, you find output eventually is going to reduce for the company or the business. Okay, so that is the short run aggregate supply. That's why it's upward sloping because of fixed wages and also some fixed prices. Because sometimes when price levels go up, some businesses won't just adjust their prices there and then. Okay, because they need to now first they need to plan and see, okay, price level has gone up and everything. They need to plan, okay, how much are we going to start charging, what do we need to do. So you find there and then prices are not going to go up. Okay, but after some time the price after some time passes, you find now when you go back to that shop or that business, you find now prices have eventually gone up. Okay, but other businesses, you find as price levels go up, even tomorrow they tell you, no, this is now this amount. Okay. So wages and certain prices stay fixed in the short run. Okay. Yes. Any questions? Yes. So I'll send you this document. You can do your calculations for when price level goes down. You're going to see that since the wages are fixed, so you find even your profit margin is going to eventually go down. So as a business, you need to now cut off more workers so that eventually your profit margins are such that you're making some sustainable profit for the business. So I'll send you the document. You do this one for when the price goes down. Then we need to talk about the shifters of the short run aggregate supply. What is going to make cost of production lower for businesses? Okay, so you've got subsidies, you've got taxes, okay, corporate taxes, you've also got the taxes in terms of tariffs. Remember, colleagues, what is a tariff? You've also got quotas. Tariffs is just an extra charge put on goods being imported. So that extra charge is eventually going to be passed down to the consumer. Okay. When you're paying for a good, you see that value added tax there. That's being transferred to you. That's why when you pay, you will see value added tax has been removed. Okay. So yes, basically we can call these actions of government. Okay, actions of government. Subsidies, when government is offering financial aid to businesses, it makes cost of production cheap. When government gives subsidies, you expect the short run aggregate supply curve to move to the right, meaning it increases. But if government is imposing taxes and also tariffs and quotas, it means it will be expensive for the businesses, so they might reduce production. So you find your short run aggregate supply is going to move to the left, meaning it's reducing. Okay, even quotas is just a restriction on the amount of goods coming into the nation. So if government imposes a quota and majority of businesses use imported goods as the raw materials, it will become expensive for those businesses. Okay, and there you will import less. But the business has to stay profitable. So when they're producing less, they will need to also increase that price so that at least they're still remaining profitable there. Okay, so that's one of the first shifters, actions of government. Okay, even government regulations. Okay, these environmental regulations. Okay, if government tells the mines they're producing too much sulfur dioxide, switch production means that are less harmful to the environment, it will be expensive for the mine. Okay, and most businesses, the thing is, they don't want to incur more expenses, so they'll produce less, so they might go away. The second factor is prices of inputs. In terms of raw materials, if raw materials get expensive, you might not be buying as much as you were buying when they were cheap. You might start buying less. Okay. And if you buy less raw materials, it's expected for you to produce less also. Raw materials are cheaper, You buy more of them and you can produce more of them. Excuse me. Okay, you can buy more and produce more. Even wages, if people start demanding higher wages, okay, after price levels have gone up and then some time has passed and those fixed wages, your contracts have expired. Now you can negotiate higher wages. You find higher wages is a bigger expense for a business. Okay. So if people are demanding higher wages, you cut them off. Just like at your home, with let's say if you have a gardener and a maid, okay, if they start demanding higher wages, you might lay off one of them or both of them. Okay, although you don't produce anything at home, but that's just an illustration. My, so even the same with businesses, people demanding higher wages, it will be expensive for the business. So eventually people get cut off. Okay. But if it's a case where people are demanding lower wages and it's cheaper for a business, okay, that's why these companies, the Nikes, Adidas, they've got these factories in these other countries, the so-called third world countries, because wages are cheaper there. They're producing in America there. The wages won't be cheap. The wages won't be cheap there. So they hope to produce where wages are cheap, so that where wages are cheaper, you can hire a lot of people and produce more. Then we have positive and negative shocks or externalities. We have natural disasters, wars, famines, droughts. We had a drought here in Zambia. We saw how the price of maize skyrocketed, of milling meal, how it skyrocketed. Countries where there's war, you find no one will want to go to work in the factory because there's a war. They don't want to die. They'll flee. Factories even might be closed. Okay. Positive shocks, for example, you find natural resources within your country, find oil, find minerals. Okay, you have a good, or maybe you have good climate that time, good rain. Farmers are able to grow their crops. If there have been any technological advancements that can help your nation, those are the positive shocks there. So these will affect the supply within an economy. Right? So negative shocks, wars, famine, drought, natural disasters. Positive shocks, you've got good weather, discovery of natural resources, technological advancements. Yes. Those are some of the positive shocks. And finally, technology, which can also form part of a positive shock. The better technology businesses have within an economy, the more they can produce. Okay. Better equipment and machinery, so the more you can produce. You'll be able to produce far more than those who have that technology. Okay. So just remember this acronym PAP, PAPT. These first P, prices of inputs, the raw materials and wages. A is actions of government. This other P is positive or negative shocks. T is technology. Any questions before now we go to the long run, where now wages and prices adjust to the economic conditions? Okay, because in the long run, what we're just basically saying is eventually the wages and the other costs, they will eventually adjust. Okay. And also in the long run, the economy is utilizing all its resources efficiently. Okay. Everyone who needs a job has got a job. All the capital is being used effectively. All the land is being also used effectively. Okay. So you are producing at your optimal output. Okay. Just for example, if you're a farmer, okay, you manage to get the tractors, the combine harvesters, and whatever those other forms of tractors. You've got abundant land, you've got an abundant workforce. Then there we can say you've reached your optimal output. You can't. It's like you've reached your saturation point. Okay, because you're utilizing all the factors of production efficiently. Okay. So things like price level won't affect your output. If price levels go up and people are demanding high wages, you can also adjust the price level of what you're producing, and yeah, you adjust the price level of what you're producing, and you just continue producing the same output you are doing. If price levels go down again, also you can still adjust. Okay, because usually when price levels go down, that's in a recession now. Okay, so it's a recession, so you can also adjust your prices, because in a recession, people are poor and broke and they can't afford high prices. So you as a company, you can also adjust. All right. Even now, people will be demanding lower wages during a recession, so you can still maintain your labor force and still produce the same output. Okay, here's an illustration here for the long run now. Okay, is this upward sloping line like this? Okay, price level goes up or down, you're just producing the same output. Okay, so here's an illustration. I already did the calculations here. Let's say we start from this point here at Tukwach. Okay. So the assumption here is wages and other costs, they adjust proportionally to prices. Okay. So if wages and costs increase by 10%, okay, even you can increase your price level by 10%. Okay. Now remember, here you have got all the land you have, all the capital you have, and all the workers you have. So you cannot produce more. You cannot hire any more workers. You cannot buy any more capital. Okay. At the moment, but eventually you can get those, and the long run aggregate supply will also shift. But the assumption is you're producing at your best. That's your optimal output. So even though price goes up from 2 kwacha, it increases by 10% to 2.2 kwacha. Wages and costs also go up by 10% from 100,000 to 110,000. You still maintain the same output. Okay, in the short run, you noticed when prices were going up, even output was either increasing, or when prices go down, output was decreasing. But in the long run, the output stays the same. Okay, because you've reached your optimal point. Okay, so as you can see, due to the proportional increment in wages and in prices, Even though the revenue is bigger or smaller, profit margins are still going to stay the same. Okay. Your profit margins are still going to stay the same, and you're still going to be producing the same output. Okay. So the only things that can shift this long run aggregate supply is if you get more labor, more capital, more land. These factors of production. If you acquire more of them, then this long run aggregate supply curve, let me just put it here by itself. If you acquire more of these factors of production, your long run aggregate supply can shift like this to the right. Okay. Now, if these factors of production, you have less workers, less capital, less land, eventually it will reduce like this. All right. But price level won't have an effect because wages and costs are adjusting accordingly to the price levels and the prices are selling at. Any questions?